fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year. But the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker. Especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs. Any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
First, we need to talk about a driver. We need to talk about a driver who, for many during a period of time in racing, before Ayrton Senna, before Alain Prost, Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher, Mika Hakkinen, Kimi Räikkönen, Lewis Hamilton, this driver was considered the greatest driver of all time, with maybe one exception being Jim Clark. We're talking Gilles Villeneuve, a driver who never had a world championship, never had, by all intents and purposes, I would say, an accumulative of a lot of wins. But the way he won, the way he drove, there was no doubt about it. He was considered the best and a yardstick for many a driver to try and go out there and beat. This is his place right now, named in his honor. We say Salut Gilles every time we cross the start-finish line, because this is the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This is Montreal. This is a street circuit which feels like a racetrack, which feels like you could place it anywhere in the world and have amazing racing. This is a place where we see great racing going on, and today it is a finale to a championship here with us on SimSpeed TV for, of course, the final round of your Dallara Formula IR series. I'm Jake Sperry, joined alongside, of course, by Jay Kennedy to bring you the action today from this place. We zoom on in using Google Earth to Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and, of course, a wonderful, wonderful circuit. You can see Toronto, Buffalo, Detroit, Cleveland, and Boston, but we're heading to Montreal, right in the heart of French-speaking Canada, And now as we move on down into the St. Lawrence River, and of course the place where the rowing took place in the Olympic Games once upon a time, it is here where we set our scene, Jay. A wonderful 4.36 kilometer and very tough 14-turn track.
And what a track it is as well. It's a fantastic circuit, and it's so iconic, and it's one that the drivers enjoy in most cars, but it's one that's always puts on a spectacle as well. So it's always provides some great racing to watch, which is important for us as spectators to enjoy a show. But it provides great passing opportunities. It provides very, very tough battles between yourself and your car, and it's going to provide a fantastic finish to what has been a remarkable championship season, one that has seen very, very big ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and will decide a championship for the Dallara Formula IR.
Certainly will. It's going to be a tough order to see that championship change to where we are at the moment. Qualifying is currently underway. They've got 8 minutes or 2 laps. That's the state of play. 1,770 for Tamas Simon and 1,747 for Marco Sanfilippo. The big key is strength of field and how much of a strength of field we have here today. Marco Sanfilippo, the way that the 4 drop rounds work in this championship, it is an iRacing championship after all. It means that you have to be at your very best, and when you're as many points down as you are at this moment in time, you're needing to find a lot. And at this stage, 23 points doesn't sound like much, but when the strength of field today is 2,600, you're miracle searching.
Yeah, we were doing some quick sums beforehand, and Marco Sanfilippo basically needs Tamas Simon to not score points full stop to win this championship. So he almost needs Simon to finish last somehow and hope that he can win, and that the strength of field is high enough to gain those points. Because remember, Tamas Simon missed a few rounds, which plays into his favour at this point, because whatever Tamas Simon scores today will count towards his championship pretty much. But Marco Sanfilippo needs to win the race and hope that the points haul is high enough to gain points in his championship fight. So it's going to be a tough ask, but anything can and possibly will happen. This circuit provides all sorts of bizarre action. It's going to be a very, very fun race.
Tell you what, though, Marco has just usurped Tamas Simon at the top of qualifying. A 12.8 compared to a 13 flat. So we focus on Philip Schiff out there on his opening lap out on track. Just the one split today, which is a bit worrying for drivers who are searching for points. The only other driver out there on a representative lap is James Chesters in the MXS machine in 5th position. So there is a lot of work going on, and a big wiggle from Schiff going through the middle sector there, coming out of the right and the left, and now down the hill, or not necessarily the hill, but down into Lapangle here. This very tough braking zone. That hairpin is one of the prime places today where you are going to see overtakes happen, and now you make that drive back up towards the casino chicane here over on the right-hand side, and that wall of champions, which has time and again taken out many a driver. Nice and neat from Schiff as he makes that drive over towards the line. We'll see what time this is as he crosses, and his first lap is a 1:15.1, but he hasn't left himself enough time for another lap.
Yeah, you won't get that next lap in as Chesters comes up to the line to finish his lap. Was in 5th. He would gain 1 spot over Omar Bahar if it gets into 4th. But that's pretty much qualifying done. We do have Massa out on circuit. He may get this time
lap.
in. Yeah, it's an out lap though, so he won't count anyway. So that is qualifying done.
Certainly is, and even if it was, it's a case for him that he is out of his 2 allotted qualifying laps. So Marco Sanfilippo, a 1:12.856, only driver in the 1:12s, puts the car up then on pole position. We'll have Tamas Simon for company alongside on the front row. Andreas Henkel starts this one then from 3rd with James Chesters in 4th. Omar Bahar going from 5th place with Brandon Powell in 6th position overall. P7 goes to the Polish driver, Tomasz Kozron, with Adam Cohn making it into 8th position, the New Zealand driver, very early in the morning over there, with Philip Schiff in 9th position and Jacob Anderson rounding out the top 10. It's Chris Cheese Brown in 11th position with Matthew Johns there in 12th. 13th on the grid goes to Gary Larson with Ilari Arnio there in 14th place. Mark Hewitt was the last driver to set a time in P15 with Eugenio Massa, Ben Mott and Mikael Furket then deciding that they are best off not setting a representative time in qualifying, and as such they line up by iRacing order, Massa from Mott from Furket, to make sure that they get themselves on the grid. It is, of course, a very important race. 36 laps, 1 pit stop is going to be required here today. And there we can see Salut Gilles. And when this track was scanned 30 years, it was to the day. But at this moment, it's going to be all about how these drivers get themselves ready. And that short run to turn 1 on a narrow circuit. We have seen dramas before off the line in this series. We could very easily see so again. And drivers who really want to feel like they've got the patience game in their hands will normally line up on the grid as late as they can. There onto the grid goes Tamas Simon in the number 1. The only real weakness we've seen this season from him has been his start. So that is worth keeping in the back of the mind. Ben Mott is the only driver we are waiting for at this point in time, but he's not going to take to his start. We're going to get underway. What a start by Henkel. He's trying to get himself to the inside. There's no room there as they funnel 3 wide in towards 1, and forced off the road a little bit there was Tamas Simon, who just got himself out of the way through turn 2 and got himself nicely there, side by side as it's on for 3rd, and they go through, and there could be dramas in the middle. There is, and it's Schiff who's in the wall.
Wow, what a crazy start. As you said, Philip Schiff is the driver that's done. He's out of the race, in the wall, and for that to happen so quickly, it's painful for him and his run at the end of this championship. But Chesters and Kozron still side by side coming up to the next chicane, and still side by side. Kozron's going to get through, but Brandon Powell now looking to pounce.
That was all caused by Kozron there, missing the second chicane. That was all the dramas in the fight for 5th place. They hit the brakes and go through. Kozron running a little bit wider there, trying to put the power down early. Chesters, Powell, Anderson and Cohn all there. A bit of side-by-side behind as well as Cheese loses at his place. Chris Cheese Brown to Mark Hewitt gaining a place. But a lap is going to be scored in the book. You can see Chesters having to go defensive here into that final chicane. And ultimately, in terms of that battle, it is going to be a case of they stay as is. Marco Sanfilippo with the lead, but crucially, Tamas Simon doing all he needs to right now in P2.
Yeah, and points-wise too, 160 points for the winner in this race, so that may not be enough for Marco Sanfilippo. We will try and calculate the points throughout the race and get a bit of a picture on where the championship sits. But as far as I can see, the championship gap will stay around about that same distance at the moment of 23 points between Sanfilippo and Simon. Not enough in this race at the moment, but Tamas Simon has a bad result here, which could still happen. It could play back into Sanfilippo's favour, but things looking good for Simon, currently P2.
Yeah, you can see just how much smoke as well in the background of drivers hitting the brakes. It's such a tough track and car combo to get correct. There is Jacob Anderson, who is up 2 places from his grid stall and wants to make it 3 as he chases down Brandon Powell in the number 8 machine, who currently occupies that 7th position. They hit the brakes into that final chicane once again and look to gear it up. No DRS in these vehicles. They are so low and so centered to the ground. They don't need them as they drive all the way towards turn number 1 once again, and 2, of course, that fantastic S section to start off the lap. Top 2 breaking away now from 3rd and 4th. Henkel in 3rd, Bahar in 4th. We've seen that quite a bit this season so far. That gap just eking out was 1.1 when they last crossed the line.
Yeah, it's already out to 1.5 now too. So Simon and Sanfilippo definitely, I mean, no surprise to see that they're the class of the field. They have been all season. But pulling that gap so quick just shows how good drivers these two are. As Marco, the first driver into the 1 minute 13s. This will actually be a very, very quick race in regards to length, time-wise. One of the shortest races we'll see all season, not much more than 40-odd minutes. So most of the races we've seen have been closer to the 50-minute mark. This is one of the shortest we're going to see time-wise all season long, which means the intensity level of the drivers needs to be up an even higher gear. I mean, these cars produce high-intensity racing anyway, but the fact that they're going to have to step that up even further because of the shorter length means that this race is going to be very, very crazy come the end.
And on top of that, we talk about this being a very important battling championship. Look further back down the order here. You've got there Gary Larson trying to get through on iR-01 there in what is 13th position. Chris Cheese Brown on the front of this group at this moment in time. It's worth noting that his car is painted entirely of cheese right now as it goes through. You definitely can't miss Chris Cheese Brown out there on track. So the work very much there. Gary Larson, of course, a part of the Blue Flag Racing team. You got Arnio, who is trying to keep this one all honest as that charge goes through. But as we go on board with the nose, you can see just how quick this track is. But a very technical middle sector. Surprisingly so, that third chicane is one-line suits all and so easy to get wrong.
100%. It's a real tough circuit. And that section is incredibly difficult to get perfect, and too wide racing through there just doesn't happen because you run off the circuit, you find yourself susceptible to a slowdown penalty, which then hurts you so much because that run to the hairpin is so short, that corner's already so slow, so if you're trying to give up time for a slowdown penalty at the hairpin, just leaves you open to losing bulk positions. As we have our first real legitimate lap times coming in for our leaders. Remember before you said it was 1.1 seconds between second and third? It's now 3.
Yeah.
3.5.
It was 3 for a moment. It was 0.6 across the line. Tamas Simon absolutely gunning it at the moment. But great battles up and down the order right now. You got James Chester and Brandon Powell as well, pretty close. But on the brakes, the leaders go. There is Brandon Powell just shadowing the rear of James Chester's, having a really good go of things at the moment. Is currently down one position from where he started and wants to try and take advantage of that through the big right hand up there of the hairpin and trying to get that power down. That small kink left actually does quite a bit in these machines. You've got to be alert to that you don't let the rears step out through that section. But as they drive, you can see just not able to close it up just yet. You need great commitment through the final chicane if you're going to get a run into one.
Yeah, and these cars too, it's very, very difficult to throw it up the inside and make those moves. You really have to plan your moves almost a lap in advance, and you've got to have so much more pace than the car ahead to make a move. But that is a way you can do it. Force an error from the driver ahead. Chester's just missed the apex through turn 2. Brandon Powell not quite close enough to get through, but again, another mistake there for James Chesters. He's leaving himself susceptible, not through pace, but through mistakes.
It is mistakes. It was a grabbing of the curb through 1, which unsettled the car into 2 for James Chesters. Now you start to wonder here with Brandon Powell all over the back. How long is it going to take for Chesters to crack? He's a driver who doesn't often make mistakes. You can see the smoke as he goes through turn number 8 and 9 out on circuit. But really, this is all about patience. This is a street circuit style. You've got to be patient. You've got to wait for opportunity to present, because this is the sort of circuit which gifts you chances from mistakes more rather than gift you chances from overtaking.
Speaking of mistakes, that is Sanfilippo into the pits. I don't think he's driven into the pits by choice.
No, he hasn't. He's gone through the side. He's hit the wall of champions. He's hit the second wall, and he's driven through the wall, the gap in the wall, to find the pits.
Oh.
There's the hit. There's the second hit. Now watch this for ingenuity from Marco Sanfilippo. Doesn't waste any time. Drives through the wall, enters the pit lane.
And that's championship done.
Yeah.
Oh, look at how
Just
much
like
air
that.
he got.
Yeah. It's literally just that. You watch the air. Those are anti-cut curbs for a reason. A lot of drivers take a look at it and go, yeah, that's what we don't want to deal with. You can see he's over the top, but look at that. He gets so much air, and he's got no grip. He's trying to turn in with 2 tyres.
Yeah. That's painful for him, and disappointing way for this championship fight to end, but he's continuing on, which is a positive to see, but
He missed the box.
yeah, so he's going to have to come back in again, and what he'll do, he'll hope that this is the point that he can make it home from, because if he can, he'll just try and bring it home. But uncharacteristic error from Marco Sanfilippo, and this is what we see in these close championship fights where drivers make mistakes because they have to push hard. It's not that he wants to push as hard as he was. He had no choice to.
No, Tamas Simon really put the pressure on. In the middle of all of this, by the way, Brandon Powell is now through here on James Chester's. So that is a change for position. Powell now up into 5th place in this one. And Tamas Simon now with a 5-second lead. I like that on the back of Brandon Powell's car. It says intellectual property, which means it's clearly his.
Even though it's definitely a mock of something that we saw not that long ago.
Agreed. I believe we saw it in another street circuit race, did we not?
I think we did a couple of weeks ago in a real life street circuit race.
I certainly think we did. We will not make any judgments just yet. That's up for McLaren to decide. But at least for the moment, Brandon Powell will be looking behind. Chester's really closing in, getting all over the mirrors, going into that final chicane. And he'll get a much better drive, will he? No, that dirty air effect really hurting through that final corner. And you can tell there for James Chester's, that is a lot of time that he will definitely want back the longer that this one goes. The recovery of Marco Sanfilippo's one to definitely keep an eye out on. I think he got away with it with the hits and just took the easy way to get back to racing again, because you got Gary Larson, who's got nothing in the blue flag racing car to deal with right now, and very much may as well had a blue flag the way that Marco Sanfilippo drove on by.
Agreed. That was an easy little move there, and I'm guessing that Larson probably didn't fight that too much. He would have known that Marco is out of position, and you know, no point fighting someone that you know you're not going to battle with. We know that Marco's got some great pace, so he'll get himself forward as far as he can. And you never know, as we said before, you never know what can happen in these races. Never know what could happen in the championship. Still, things could happen, but Tamas Simon with one hand on that championship title at the moment.
Can't count. I do it every single time. He's got 7 fingers and 2 thumbs on it right now. That's the way I see it. He's just got to wait to put that pinky finger on it at the moment. We're focusing, of course, with James Chester's unable to get through. There has been another change for position. Marco Sanfilippo through on Chris Cheese Brown, and now immediately onto Mark Hewitt coming out to the final corner. So look at this. Hewitt, he's got nothing to deal with here. Marco Sanfilippo was thinking about the inside. It's nicely defended actually there by Mark, who took a really nice and smooth line through the corner. On the exit though, not so much. Marco's got the inside, always bends to the inside, and Mark Hewitt lifts well out of the way of Marco, who gains that place back again. Another little scrap. Oh, hello.
Did you see that slide from Marco through the exit of the chicane?
Oh, I was half looking at it, but my word.
Have a look at this again, because that was some great car control. Just to know how much grip the car had, know to push it at 99.99% and not go over that 100% threshold. The slide in the exit of this corner. Look at the control. You can compare that to the cars behind her, just going through nice and steady. But the slide there was pretty cool to watch. We go to that battle you were about to mention. One of our favourite liveries we've seen.
House. Adam Cohn in the Leighton House Inspire car up against Jacob Anderson then, who is making that charge over towards turns 1 and 2 once again with the very nice drink on the all over the car, I would say, at this stage. So please drink responsibly, ladies and gentlemen. But on the brakes, the right followed by the left of 3 and 4. Nicely up against the wall there goes Jacob Anderson. And he's driving really, really nicely at the moment. 11th is his number overall. He's got the 11th best iRating, qualified the car in 10th. He is up to 7th, and I'd say he's having a really good run at this moment in time.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and his pace is quite good as well. As his lap times, he and Cohen very, very similar in regards to actual lap pace. So these two are going to battle for a lot of this race, you would think, as long as they don't get themselves in too much trouble. But there's trouble brewing here between Chesters and Powell. James Chesters, I feel, is the faster of the two drivers. The only reason Powell got through was due to a couple of errors, but James Chesters looks as though he's got that back under control as Emma Simon sets the fastest lap of the race. Chesters looking very, very smooth.
Yeah, exactly. So Chester's doing a pretty decent job at this moment of keeping honest Brandon Powell at this stage of the race. There has been another change for position. Marco Sanfilippo has got another one. It's Matthew Johns this time, as there's a bit of side-by-side. That's Mark Hewitt dropping back a number of places, and he is someone who has just fallen foul of the slow-down penalty through the final corner.
Yep, he was ahead of Brown and Larson. You see how aggressive he gets through the final chicane. Is looking to make a move. There is Brown, and he actually did get the move done. And Hewitt just tried to avoid it and make sure that there wasn't any contact. So he took to the shortcut, cut the corner. iRacing stewards say, no thank you, you can slow down. He loses 2 spots.
Worth noticing that Philip Schiff is back out there and racing again, so we saw a lot of smoke there for a moment. He is 10 laps down at this moment in time on your race leader that you can see on screen. Tamas Simon, who has been pretty much all-conquering at this point in time. There is that battle continuing, though. Best chance for a while that James Chesters has had into 1 and 2. Very squirrely there is Brandon Powell, but he gets it stopped on the hard compound tyre. Now, this is something that's really important. This is the first time, really, that we have seen since the McLaren MP430 a difference in tyre compounds on a car, this Dallara Formula IR. But one of the big keys we have seen from all of these drivers is that they all choose the hard tyre. Why? Longevity. Because this machine absolutely chews tyres.
Yep, exactly right. And that will be adjusted for the next season as well. So the tyre compounds are being shuffled around and adjusted for the next season of this series. So we'll see a little bit more tyre strategy come into play for Season 3 of the Dallara Formula IO season. So the drivers will be quite happy about that change, because that is one thing that they've found that drivers new to the series have struggled with, is the psychology that you actually go a little bit quicker and find the control of the car a little bit easier on the harder tyre than on the softer tyre, which is completely different to what we see in most other cars. As Chester's looking to make the move, couldn't quite get it done. Brandon Powell doing a great job of holding this position.
Brandon Powell looks like he's wrestling an octopus, and James Chesters looks like he's the coolest driver in the room. It was all down to that final chicane once again. He was very aggressive over that second part of it, was Brandon Powell, which opened up the door for Chesters, but couldn't quite make it all happen. So this is going to be a tough race, and that's a spin up, and that is Matthew Johns there going for a little spin around at turn number 1 out on track. We'll catch us on the Virtual Racing School replay. Massive thank you to Virtual Racing School, who have sponsored the replays here, all on his own. Back steps out through turn 1. That's just a case of putting too much speed in. The rears, of course, are very prone to doing that.
Yeah, it's a fairly common mistake we see in this series. So, I mean, I think nearly every driver that's raced in this championship this season has done that at some point around one of the circuits. So, as much as we don't like showing people spinning like that, it's just one of those things that we see. We sort of have to understand the story of the race sometimes, that watch people spin. It's not to make people feel bad about spinning. It's just so that we understand what's actually happened in the race.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I often get gripes about, you'd say, Jay, in terms of racing, how people don't want to see crashes and they are out there and want to see good, clean racing. The one point is you can make great action with good, clean racing. It's when it goes wrong, which create action. And 9 times out of 10, the biggest drama has come from either the weather elements, and that's Chris Cheese Brown proving that he's not the only one who goes and makes it happen at turn number 2. Out on circuit there. So we'll catch this on the virtual racing school replay. Heading through, they got around the lap traffic there of Furquet, and as they made their way through, once again, it's exactly the same spin as what happened there to Matthew Johns. So ultimately a flick spin and back around you go. But really, it's a case where sim racing is about action and people who make mistakes. And a lot of the top series, you can see drivers have been so focused as Estes gets right up behind. Go through the final chicane, will have no drive off the exit though. Most of the action that you see is very, very difficult to actually go out there and make overtakes because everyone is practicing so much that they're pretty much nigh on perfect to robot machine-like accuracy.
100%, and often, as you said, the mistakes lead to that action and you know, sort of make people have to adapt and things like that. And the other thing with that too is Marco Sanfilippo gets past Adam Cohen, so back in 8th position. The other part with that is for us to understand what's happening in the race and try and help show the story of the race and understand why people have gained so many spots and lost spots and how someone's ended up out of position. We need to know what's happened with those spins, and we do get a lot of people asking, why do you show people spinning? Well, it's so that we understand what is actually happening in the race and can follow the story of the race, because at the end of the day, it is a story that we're trying to help tell out there on track and understand what's happening in the race.
Yeah, we are very much storytellers, and our job is to make sure that you know the whole picture of the story. Now, Brandon Powell again having to be defensive in towards this final chicane. Chester's a little bit better that time, but again, won't get the run off of the exit in comparison. Want to keep an eye as well on Jacob Anderson all of a sudden, because Marco Sanfilippo is right there behind immediately, trying to get close enough to go and make a move. And this is what you see here. The mark of a driver is not how they get knocked down, it's how they get back up again and try to make a move.
Sounds
that
like
one's not quite able to happen just yet, but Jacob Anderson's proving he's got pace.
Thought you were about to start singing there for a second. Especially with the tequila drink on there. Not quite a whiskey drink. Bit sidetracked for 6 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, Sanfilippo's pace has actually been quite good. That's a move done. His pace in comparison to Thomas Simon is very, very similar. So we would have seen a great battle between those two, but it's not over until it's over as we hit the halfway point of the race. Simon could still make an error like we saw. We saw how easy it was for Marco Sanfilippo to make that mistake and just clip the curb a tiny little bit too much. Nothing to say that Thomas Simon won't do the same thing, because he is still pushing hard.
He very much is. We just had our first 2 takers into the lane over that last lap. Mark Hewitt and Eugenio Massa have both come into the pits and are both now leaving the pits at this moment in time. They both fall effectively 1 lap down at this moment here as we go on. There is James Chesters. You can see how much opposite lock he's getting there as he tries to put the power down coming out of turn 2. He was going through a right-hand bend turning left. Yeah,
the rear wheel spin was incredible that he had going on there through the exit of turn 2. It's such a tough corner too. Look on paper and it just seems like it's a fairly normal right-hand turn, but the way that the corner's profiled, it sort of opens up and then closes up again throughout the corner and then opens up again. So it's such a bizarre, unusual corner shape that it can catch drivers out the first few times they race here. Once they're been going for a little while, they seem to find it a lot more comfortable. But I must say, turn 1 and 2 here at Montreal is one section of corners I could never ever get right.
Nor me, but then again, most of my sim racing experience came on a game that... Oh no! Powell has completely taken the back out to Eugenio Massa, and I expect Powell was going for the pit. Massa just took his normal line, and then all of a sudden, he gets torpedoed by a flying missile. That was a case of getting Brandon getting caught in 2 minds on how he wanted to pit. and ultimately chose wrong.
Yep. He was hoping that... I can't even remember who that was now.
Eugenio Massa.
Massa. Hoping Massa was going the other way and was going to be able to get around and was going to let him through. I'm not sure what the thinking was, but the thinking was wrong, whatever it was. That was a huge impact. And that's the easiest way James Chesters is going to make a spot. Just watch the car ahead crash someone else out. Not the way he wants the spot.
That's the way he gets it. There's no other way around it in terms of this. As into the pits comes iR-01 there to make his stop, and they can see two wheels on my wagon. Very much looking like Wheelie Big Cheese from Robot Wars right now. Their flipper robot is Eugenio Massa's car, and I tell you what, thank God it's virtual. That bill would have been astronomical.
Yeah, I was watching the F1 broadcast, and they were talking about some of the costs of repairs of huge accidents, and they're saying that Leclerc's hit in the wall, just for the nose cone alone, was $75,000 US.
Oh,
just for the front wing.
I can already feel my wallet shrinking and shriveling up at the sound of 75 US dollars,
let alone 75,000.
Oh, agreed. Absolutely. Tamas Simon, though, out in front with 17 laps to go. It's 16 when he crosses the start-finish line. His lead 15 seconds over Andreas Henkel. In fact, he's going to dive down into the pits right now. I'm interested in this second-place battle behind as your race leader comes down in, because Bahar versus Henkel, that gap has been fluctuating around 1 to 2 seconds all race.
Yeah, it's been chopping and changing, hasn't it? And some laps Henkel gets an advantage in pace, and then the next lap Bahar responds, and last lap by Henkel did his fastest lap of the race, and right on cue Omar Bahar sets pretty much the same time as Henkel just did then. So these guys are maintaining a pretty even gap, and now that pit stops come in, Bahar has a chance to try and do something a little bit different. We're seeing this series, the overcut seems to be the best strategy because they're going hard. The tyre compound definitely plays into that advantage, but the gap between Bahar and Henkel has already dropped nearly half a second on this lap. Omar Bahar setting his personal best first sector, if I could actually get my words out.
Yeah, and of course, those fuel loads being burnt off, they're only going to get quicker and quicker as this race goes on. Little lock up there going into the Pangle at turn 10 from Andreas Henkel, who is your race leader at this stage. I do need to point out 1 and 2 in this race were both running Michael Schumacher helmets at this stage, so it tells you how much of an influence he has on drivers trying to be quick. Now, Henkel's going to dive straight on into the lane, but Bahar is staying out. I expected Henkel to go further, but Bahar feels pretty comfortable right now on that worn set of hard compound tyres.
He's feeling quite confident. He's just set his personal best lap in the race. His first lap in the 1:13s. Thomas Cosron continuing on as well. He's had a very, very quiet race. He was in a little bit of a battle earlier, but out there in no man's land now. Tamas Simon already back into third. And Henkel just getting into his pit box now. It's such a long, slow pit lane here, isn't it? It feels like the pit lane entry is so far away from your pit box because there are so many pit stalls here.
I'll tell you why it feels so long is that this is not a pit stall dedicated to a Formula 1 style grid. This is more dedicated to the NASCAR and the IndyCar that went here. And of course, that meant there were a lot more grid stalls needed. And the likes of Marco Sanfilippo, for example, has just gone in and out of the pits. Cone is in, Anderson is in, Brandon Powell is back in to make another stop. So you really are seeing the differences with drivers out there at this stage. There goes Jacob Anderson, 7.9 seconds stationary in the lane. Takes a little while to get things going. Now in comes Omar Bahar to make his stop. How good has the one-lap overcut been as Tomasz Kozron follows, releasing Tamas Simon back to the race lead?
Yep. So pretty much everyone coming in now after 22 laps. Henkel's pit stop, 7.3 seconds. Marco Sanfilippo, despite the hit in the wall, still had the fastest pit stop out of everyone. Simon 7.5, Henkel 7.3, Sanfilippo 6.9 seconds. As Bahar 7.3 as well, going to come out. And I'll tell you
Behind.
what, I think he's actually gained a bit of time, has Omar Bahar.
Gained, yes. Overtake. Has to do it on the track now. That pit stop is the safest place in the entirety of the race to go out there and make overtakes. And that's why some people look at races with pit stops. They say, oh, pit stops change races when you had to do all the refueling. You realise that refueling actually encourages less overtaking in a race. It's a really bizarre mechanic with fuel as they go through the third chicane. Little mistake there from Bahar as he just pushed a little bit too deep there through that third chicane, and suddenly he now drops a little bit further back and outside of range in comparison to Andreas Henkel, who promptly runs wide through the chicane, and just like that, the gap equals out through checks and balances. But really what you say is that refueling creates a little bit more troubles as into the pits comes Mr. Cheese.
Yeah, it's something we've seen. It's probably more noticeable in series where we see pit stops, but not necessarily refueling. We see in the VRS GT series that the drivers coming in to splash in fuel doesn't really provide an advantage in regards to overtaking. But series like the iRacing Grand Prix series, where the McLaren doesn't allow refueling, just the tyre change is enough to encourage some alternate strategies, and it does provide a bit of overtaking and some pit lane overtaking as well. So you're right, it definitely does provide that bizarre overtaking thinking, doesn't it? It's such a weird dynamic that despite the fact that every driver has to come in and do the exact same thing down the pit lane, put some fuel in and maybe take tyres, that the races that they actually take fuel and not just tyres are the ones that don't have as much overtaking in the end. It's a weird dynamic, but you are 100% right.
Yeah, and we're seeing how these dynamics come in. There is your race leader, Tamas Simon, holding with 12 laps to go. The control of this race right now as he will look at the blue flag car in front of Gary Larson as his next target to overtake and place one lap down. Larson not letting him have it, though. He even gives him a kick of grass there just for a little bit of company. And speaking of company right now, as Simon will now get the chance coming out of turn 7 to make that happen. Marco Sanfilippo, who's found the back of James Chester's now in the battle for the top 5.
Yeah, so Chester's thought he was safe and free of a battle after that incident for Brandon Powell. Interesting that Powell did get back out on the circuit after that. I don't know how. I don't know how that car's still going, but he's now decided to park it. But how did he actually get that car back out on track? I don't know. How did they fix it enough to get back out?
I believe the word 1 is tow, and B, not taking optionals. I think he only took the required damages and has ultimately found that the suspension is very wayward, and that's why he's back in the pits.
Yeah.
Marco Sanfilippo is over James Chester's like a rash, has to really get out of it through then Lapangle, as he had no turn in at all because he was so concerned about running into the back of the number 7 MXS car. But the Palermo native, we could say, now looking to try and make that charge through the next rights and lefts coming up on the brakes through these next 2 corners. And it's all about drive. And you can see Marco fighting with the car. Has got a really good run. We'll move over to the outside, turned inside for turn 1. James Chester's gives him all of the room that he needs. And that is the top 5 now for Marco Sanfilippo.
Nice driving there from Marco as well. You saw the controlled slide. You wouldn't say that he was pushing it that hard and into a slide. He was controlling the slide. He knew exactly how much the car was going to drift on exit and just used that to his advantage and drove beautifully on the exit of the final chicane. So back up into 5th position. Damage control.
Ooh!
Limitation. Just right on cue. That's a huge mistake and great save.
Yeah, I was looking at Gary Larson, sorry. I saw something completely different. So Gary Larson going for a big moment over the curbs at the final chicane. Adam Cohn's lucky in his battle for 8th and 9th place. He's still got one. You can see Larson gets out of the way. And how has he stopped it?
I think launching it up on the curb and the scraping on the curb just slowed the car down. I don't know how he pulled it up either. I didn't think there was any wheels on the ground.
I'll tell you what, if he was doing that in the real world, he would have a very sore neck from the amount of stopping force that he'd put in with the G's.
Not only that, he'd probably have a sore bum too from the bouncing and the lack of suspension travel that these cars have. So,
oh yeah, not half. You look at these sort of machines. Let's talk over each other. Why don't we? We tend to go. Yeah, why not? But yeah, you look at machines like these, and these are open formula cars, really, Jay. And you know, it's not like you get a comfy ride and you're sat in your luxurious 5-seater out there as you take that drive to work or whatever vehicle you have out there. As out of the way goes the lap traffic, then past Henkel and Bahar. That, of course, is Matthew Johns. You know, you're sat right on the floor. These cars are designed to be as aerodynamic as possible. They don't have comfort in mind. You go over a bump, you're going to feel it in the spine.
Exactly right. It's definitely something that you would feel and struggle with. Being virtual, that's one of the advantages. You do get a much more comfy seat than you would in the real car because you don't feel all the bouncing and G's.
Wow, Marco Sanfilippo's had another big save at the final chicane.
Seems like it's been the story of the night, isn't it? Just big saves from Marco.
Well, let's have a look at it then. On the virtual racing score replay, I caught this one out the back of my eyes as I was searching through the drivers. So on the brake through the final section, he's okay. It's on the exit again. Takes too much of the final curb. Back steps out. Full opposite lock to save it.
He's got some great control at the moment. Has Marco. Sure, it hasn't all gone in his favour. And that one mistake wasn't that he didn't have control of the car. It was that he was pushing too hard. So he's
definitely
probably got enough time, actually, to gain one more spot and get up to Cosdron. He is 9 seconds back, but his usual lap times have been around about 1.1, 1.2 seconds faster. So still time for him to catch Cosdron and get up into 4th position, potentially.
That's only a potential, though. Cosdron is encroaching on the next battle in front. This is Ilari Arnio up against Matthew Johns. This is the final spot inside of the top 10 today here at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. And you'd wonder here with Johns, he had that one spin. Arnio hasn't had any spins today. He's just been calm and patient and driving his own race. He's probably looking at this thinking, well, if I can stay with Matthew Johns, I might have a chance.
Definitely possible that he can get through and get this spot and get himself into the top 10. But we've seen overtakes haven't been easy. There's been more overtakes based on mistakes than actual pace. So will we see him be able to get through? They've actually got Cosdron just behind as well, starting to encroach on their battle. That gap between Cosdron and Sanfilippo is at 9 seconds still as well. So Marco hasn't been able to punch out as quick a lap time as we may have thought. The gap between Henkel and Bahar still staying around that 1 second. As Johns moves over to let Cosdron through, and that could hurt him because it's allowing the car behind to close up, and that was close to contact.
It was close, but all in good style. I think that was the scare tactic 101 that you get in your sim racer's handbook to try and make overtakes. And I'd say Arnio's trying everything to try and make this one happen. Matthew Johns is looking very stoic at the moment in the way he's driving. Yes, there's a couple of mistakes, a big lockup as he goes through, but he's keeping it on the island. He's doing all of the right things here late on in this race, and that's the key. Finishing these races, especially at street circuits where you get a lot of drivers who shy away from this sort of race over the course of a season, Jay, because, oh, it's a street circuit, I'm going to throw it in the wall.
That's so easy to just put it in the wall. It sounds like it's something that you wouldn't try to do, but it just happens naturally, especially if you're a driver with my lack of talent. I'll tell you what, I'm glad I've never driven this car because it's an easy way for me to embarrass myself.
Trust me, me neither. And of course, there's other ways to embarrass yourself. For example, I haven't seen it in real life before. That's one that we've had this season. We've had a lot of joys this season. Worth noting that there has been a retirement now for Mark Hewitt, who has put it in the wall on lap 26 of his race, just behind Arneo, actually. And that was coming out of the second chicane.
And Arneo through on Matthew Jones. We saw there Johns even. Matthew Johns did have a little bit of a moment through the final chicane and had to serve a slowdown penalty and gave up that position. So yet another positional change, not from an overtake, but from a mistake.
Yeah, back stepped out on him through the corner, had to gather it up, and thank you very much. You know, it's 4 seconds down there, Jay, when you get a penalty like that. They don't like you going over that final chicane at any sort of speed.
The issue that, or non-issue that I had is I'm usually 4 seconds off the pace, so I've cleared that slowdown without having to worry about it.
That's very true. I'm normally 6, but mind you, I drive on a controller, so that's a big difference entirely. So, yeah, exactly. Henkel versus Bahar, gap 9/10 of a second, 5 laps to go as they cross the line. Now you have to wonder here. Henkel is just being reeled in by Bahar, who's just been patiently keeping that gap close. And Andreas Henkel, who's probably been my most improved driver all season long, he is someone who was fighting for top 10s at the start of the season, and now he's a consistent figure when it comes to the podium.
100%. It's really, really proven throughout this championship that consistent results and just putting in laps is the key to great results in this series, and probably been the driver that hasn't really had too many issues throughout the season as well. He kept himself out of trouble, which has been great to see as well. So, been a very, very good season for him, and it'll show with the championship result at the end. I think P4 from memory.
Yeah, so P4. I think it's even P3.
P3, yeah, P3.
That you might get, because of course we haven't seen Danilo Sanfilippo for a couple of rounds either. So I think Andreas Henkel might just take the final spot on the quote-unquote podium for that. But at least at this moment, Bahar's going to keep him honest all race long. And Bahar's had, I would say, an up-and-down style season this for this 3 months. Every season iRacing is determined in 3-month chunks, in 12-week chunks. So you'd say Omar Bahar, he's had some great races. He's had some truly terrible ones. Silverstone's the one that really comes to mind, where he was upside down in the barriers at 170 Ks.
Yeah, it's been a very, very up and down season. So when he's been good, he's looked absolutely brilliant. But the pros and cons, the ups and downs have been so such a wide gap between them. So yeah, not been the best season, but hasn't been a completely horrible season with some great results throughout as well.
This is the closest battle on track, ladies and gentlemen, with 4 laps to go. Bahar getting right up underneath and trying to get through. These drivers, 21 seconds adrift now, plus of Tamash Simon at the front. They are just now putting a lap on Adam Cohn there in the Leighton House-inspired livery as they go on through in towards the right and the left then of the final chicane. And once more, we will see just how difficult it is to get close. Bahar crosses the line. He's got that gap down to 0.6 of a second. Took another 0.2 off that lap through, but he needs to get right up underneath if he's to have any chance of moving up into second. And especially in such fragile machines as these, you get it wrong once, you're not going to get a second chance.
100%. No second chance if you push that little bit too hard and put it in the fence. So Omar Bahar, Andreas Henkel, they're driving. It's the sort of car that you don't drive at 100% because 100% will very, very quickly turn into 101. You drive at 99% so that if you do drive that extra 1%, it's not going to put it over that 100% threshold. It's what we've heard from pretty much every driver. They're driving it as close to the limit as you can without pushing it at the exact 100% level limit. The 100% level limit is when you put it in the wall with that tiny, tiny little error where you might push it that 0.1% too far.
Furquet there, a little bit of help for Andreas Henkel as they tick off another lap. 2 to go now. Popsicle sticks, some would say, in the American racing world. But Bahar really closes in now. Again, cuts the gap in half. Now 0.2 of a second in towards turn 1. He's getting really, really close to Henkel. This is a tough battle right now. But Bahar, of course, loses all that time again because he's stuck up underneath the rear wing. As much as you don't like to say it, there is still the dirty air effect, those turbulences, those vortices that come off of the back of that rear wing, which do make life very difficult around a technical track like this to go and stay close.
100%. It's difficult to get overtakes done. We've seen throughout this race. Time and time again, the car's close enough, and you actually saw it turn 1 there. I think Bahar was a little bit distracted by how much Henkel was braking and potentially how early he broke, because he had to lock the fronts to make sure he didn't make contact. It was very, very close to actually being a hit. Tamas Simon crosses the line to start the final lap. Probably 2 chances left for Bahar to get this move done, but at the moment he's too far back to get anything done into the final chicane in turn 1.
He's reliant on a mistake. He's so aggressive under the brakes. And you know what? He very nearly just got it out of Andreas Henkel as he made that push forward. He was aggressive over the second curb, was Andreas, and very nearly found the car looping around on him through that final chicane. Now he's got 1 more lap to make sure that he ticks it off on what has been an incredulous iR-01 season. It's seen absolutely everything. It has seen stars come to the fold. It's seen old names find themselves with victories. It has seen everything under the sun, and through all of it, they've all made it, and they have every reason to be happy. Look how close Bahar gets through this second sector and tries to keep that chase on with everything that he's got. But Tamas Simon is making his way now to the final chicane. He has done everything he's needed to in this final race. He has, in the final couple of rounds, showcased that he is one of the best. Look out, world. Tamas Simon comes to the line and takes the title here in your Dallara Formula iR-01 series. Battle for second still continues. Bahar has already said, well played, I'm not going to catch you.
But what a battle they've had. It's been a great fight between these two. One last corner for Henkel to get through. He didn't get through very, very well, but the run just not quite enough for Omar Bahar to get there. It's a great battle, though. They finished with less than 0.2 of a second separating. But Tamas Simon, what a championship for him. He'll be overjoyed with that, and deservedly so. He's driven fantastically. If I can actually get my words out. Marco Sanfilippo, the recovery, got to 5th. He didn't quite have enough laps left to get Cosdron. Chesters finishes in 6th. Jacob Anderson will be the last driver to finish on the lead lap. But Tamas Simon, provisional season champion. Just need it to become official, but it looks like it will be official. It's going to be very, very tough for Marco to get those points now.
We say provisional because, of course, with every iRacing series, you have until Monday to score all your points. It goes from Tuesdays to Tuesdays here with iRacing. And on top of all of that, there is a chance that there could be a strength of field a little bit higher than 2,600. Maybe Marco Sanfilippo needs to grab his friends together for a little bit of a race. But Tamas Simon picks up a very comfortable victory in 44 minutes and 48 seconds. He wins by 23 come the end over Andreas Henkel, who was worried in the final few laps by Omar Bahar there in third. 0.2 the gap as they cross the line. Not enough to get there overall. Tomasz Cosdron will finish off in 4th place. Quiet drive from him and a good drive. Nice to see him on form with Marco Sanfilippo. His recovery had the race lead early on. The spin into the wall. He hit the wall of champions, which means one thing, at least in this series, he could become a champion one day. James Chesters finishes off in 6th place. Another quiet drive with Jacob Anderson. Last finish on the leading lap in 7th. Adam Cohn ends up with 8th position, with Gary Larson in 9th after his spin, and Ilari Arnio rounding out the top 10, the Finnish driver there. Chris Cheese Brown gets 11th. He was the last finisher on the leading lap in this race, with Mikael Furket then in 12th, the Dutch driver. But then you hit the retirements. Matthew Johns, we didn't quite see what happened to him late on. Mark Hewitt had the double take spin into on the exit, of turn 7. Brandon Powell, we saw that almighty accident with Eugenio Massa as Powell was deciding to try and come into the pits. And then you had Philip Schiff going back to form of earlier on in the season, finding retirement early, and then not taking the start at all today in this one was the 17 of Ben Mott. So with that all said, Jay, what a wonderful season we have had here with Dallara Formula IR. And I would say that in terms of a history and a legacy, Tamas Simon and Marco Sanfilippo, this has been one of the greatest battles for a championship I've seen all season long. And they've done it as well, mind you, up against some of the very best that open wheel has to offer. They've beaten the likes of Andy T. They've beaten the likes of Antoine Higeland. They've beaten the likes of Jeremy Bouteloup.
Definitely, we've seen some of the best throughout iRacing come and jump into the championship and have a run, and just haven't been able to match. Remember that race at Monza where we saw a lot of big guns come out, and still we saw the same two names at the front of the field. As you said, Andy T coming in, who's Tamas Simon's rival in the Lotus 79 season. Not able to match these guys for pace. It's been an incredible season, and Tamas Simon, absolutely deserving champion.
And of course, a deserving champion. We still have one more race here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Join us in about an hour or 58 minutes from now, where we'll be taking our eyes to the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series finale for you. Make sure you check that out. If you haven't had the chance already, you can like, share, and subscribe for more amazing action brought to you by the team here at SimSpeed TV. A massive thanks has to go to the Virtual Racing School, title sponsors of our replays here over the course of what we've been doing. And of course, from Jay Kennedy, double duties, cameras, and commentary here tonight, and myself, Jake Sperry. It's been a pleasure to bring you this championship, which had everybody thinking up and down and all around just what were we going to expect over 12 weeks. It's been a roller coaster. Every week has been something special, and ultimately at the end, it's Tamas Simon, who has every reason to smile, has proven to the world that he is of a level which a lot of drivers don't get a chance to go out there and see. We will see you, though, in a little bit under an hour, because we got some brilliant VRS GT on the horizon. We'll see you then, but Tamas Simon will be smiling. Championship pretty much in tow.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh no.
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?